NQCC for inviting agriculture along today. I'm not sure I can do justice in 5 minutes as to where agriculture is going. As an industry, we're probably conservative by nature, and that's because our return on assets is very low, 1 to 2%. We make a big change in our business, we can go broke pretty quickly. So we're conservative, but being conservative means we need to make very good decisions on the way through. Just the fact, so working out what we do with climate change, we've had a bit of I suppose some difficult discussions with many of our politicians, and making sure that we're still in the business of climate change action and not being taken out of that whole process or the discussion. At one stage we were being talked about being actually taken out of that whole group and no discussion about carbon or otherwise. We want to be involved in that. We have a couple of key areas that we want to focus on. Our conservative nature means that we want to know the facts and why we're doing it. One of the key things for us is actually looking at what has the carbon industry done for us at the moment. There's a general concern or consensus that it's moving so fast that it's being poorly instituted. If you look at the pumped hydro program up the north here, then it's proposing to pollute the Ainsley River, okay, to teaspoon per litre of actually water flows. If you go and have a look at some of the wind farms, the basic average is there's one dead raptor per day, per fan. And this is for some of the solar panels that we've got out there, major areas of actually just reflective heat back into the atmosphere. Now, I'm not saying that we don't support this. We believe the carbon industry is laudable and we want to support it, but we want to support it being done well. At the moment, agriculture feels as though we're just the butt of that because we're under huge pressure where everyone's coming to our doorstep, putting in major power lines through our land, fans, it's all happening very quickly. If you actually have a look at the best place to put a fan, it'd probably be out the front here rather than in my backyard. You know, solar panels in all our backyards. We need to think this through so we get it right. Okay, so that's one of our concerns with the industry. Whilst we believe it's laudable and we want to support it, so MLA's come on out and said that we want to be carbon neutral by 2030, and I think we'll hose that in. We're way above that in terms of carbon. One of the big issues for us, though, is that carbon is only 4% of the heat dynamic. If you actually look at it being 4%, the issue with carbon is it's spread evenly through the atmosphere. The other gases like methane, the fluorohydrocarbons, ozone, those things are about 1% of the heat dynamic, and they're spread fairly evenly through, and that ends up with 95%. So 95% of the gases that we heat up in the atmosphere that causes our problem is water. So we want to think about how do we actually deal with water, and if we look historically, that's been done plenty of times before. And what happens is we've got this great climate where we can actually, no, I shouldn't say climate, we've got this great planet that's already worked a lot of these solutions out for us. If you actually have a look at this tree here beside us, it does a wonderful job of taking carbon out of the atmosphere, and it really works like an air conditioner. We all want to sit under a tree. It's cooler, okay, it provides us with oxygen, and so we get evaporative cooling. So wherever we've got a photosynthetic surface, we've got evaporative cooling. And evaporative cooling makes a big difference in terms of mitigating climate change. And that's not just our ideas. We've had to have a look around the planet and see what's working. And in the big group that we see as leaders in this area in terms of sorting out climate change and trying to make it are the Indians. If you just look at one of the states like Rajasthan, they've dropped their temperature across the whole state by 2 degrees. 2 degrees with simple rehydration of landform and actually increasing the amount of photosynthesis. So that's a proven technology, and as agriculture, I'm talking about we're conservative. We want to adopt some proven technology. So it's photosynthetic cooling or evaporative cooling is one of the areas that we want to focus on. That's not saying that we don't want to be carbon neutral. We'll certainly go down that track, but we want to actually focus on that. And to do that, we need to do it on a major scale. It means some changes in agriculture for us. We have to do things differently, and there's no incentive or advantages to do that. We really need your support as a community, as a coastal community, as city cousins, to give us a hand to actually make some changes. You, as well as I, know that in a city here, you've got your little heat bubble that goes across the town with all these hard surfaces. If we have to change the tyre on a car, if we've got somewhere we don't want to do it out in the hard road, we want to do it on a nice piece of green grass somewhere, we want to sit on the grass, it's cooler. So that means all of us in this together, like the little girl was talking about, we need to get together and actually work together to increase our photosynthetic area. We know that Australia, and certainly in Queensland, we know that we've had heat changes or changes in temperature, and as part of that we need to actually start working on changing the climate above us, and we can see that in small cases. So we're actively going to go out there and start looking at trying to incentivise, trying to talk to our politicians, trying to talk to the public, as yourselves, to get us to try and to push for some support that we start to cool the place. That means changes like we'll have no more fallow ground, we'll have to put cover crops in, we'll have to look at really small water bodies across the state, a mosaic. Our policy at the moment from Queensland is a mosaic of small water bodies. We don't have a policy of a big dam. Okay, we have a policy of very small water bodies that we can hopefully promote that. We've taken some next steps in agriculture and started to form that's Queensland Ag Force. We started to form a relationship with the Northern Territory, the Cattlemen's Union there, and the Kimberley-Pilbara areas to try and look at a zone across the northern part of Australia where we can actively work at incentivising some of these sort of things that we're talking about. And hopefully we can put the two things together, and that's biodiversity and cooling the planet. So we all know that biodiversity is the underpinning factor in terms of us as a civilisation. The more diversity we get, the more strong and resilient we are for drought, flood, etc. So that's the areas we've decided to work on, and we're going to do our best. We need some support, and the simple support that you can give agriculture across Australia is simply asking to buy something local. If you go to the next Woolies or Coles, if there's some climate action needed, you just simply need to ask if you can buy a Queensland product. And therefore we can stop that traffic, that truck that drives. We had a simple case a couple of months back. We had a truck full of bananas that left Marillion. It went 4 times. Went to Brisbane markets, was unloaded, then sold to a group out of Cairns. It was then loaded by a truck and went back to Cairns. When it got to Cairns, it was then sold back to a company to go to New Guinea, and they wanted to ship out of Brisbane to take it. So the same truck, this is the same truck that bought it 3 times, then took it back to Brisbane. And when he got to Brisbane, there was a change with the shipping portfolio, and they decided to unload out of Cairns. So the ship went from Brisbane to Cairns, and the guy brought it back to Cairns and unloaded there. So that's the madness we've got of food going round and round in circles. If you're buying some Queensland food, hopefully we can cut that carbon cost down, and hopefully we can support local Queensland farmers in trying to change so that we can have a more evaporative cooling across the state. Okay, thank you.